SRT Performance division, known for the Hellcat vehicles, the SRT4s. I don't know if you knew this or not, Coy. SRT was a lot like Mazda Speed in that it had its own separate division of mechanics and engineers that were working on their own projects. Well, it has been announced. Jalopnik uses the term neutered. I would like to use the term incorporated. Stellanis, who is the parent company of Dodge right now, Dodge, Ram, Jeep, Peugeot, they are
Umbrella Corp is another term. Yeah.
Umbrella Corp.
Right.
That's a good one. They are taking the engineers from SRT and they are redistributing them into all of their other engineering endeavors. And a lot of people are concerned because now we don't have specific race engineers working on these performance vehicles. I'm not sure what to think. It has been happening for a while. The last 9 months, they've been redistributing these engineers. And so Dodge is trying to use the latest Hellcat and Demon as proof that they are not going to be getting rid of their performance-minded vehicles. However, you have to, and by the way, it's okay if you do think once these engineers go over into other places, the bean counters are really going to dilute their vision. What do we think, Coy?
Well, I mean, it's honestly gone. It's going to phase out because obviously the Hellcat engine is still around. They can just shove this power plant into multiple platforms and we're all like, oh my God, SRT. Once we kind of start getting to end of life in these engines, nobody's there to make the next super engine, So I honestly see the SRT badge becoming a joke basically in the next 10 years.
Really?
I mean, if you don't have a dedicated team of race engineers to make your super race engines, who's going to?
So the SRT may become just a trim level badge.
I honestly think it'll just be trim level and V8 package. It's not going to be what it is now.
Jay, what do you think?
So what I'm looking at here on the drive is, and I think the drive.com, I'm not a big Jalopnik fan. But it sounds like everybody is still there for the most part. And, every once in a while, these organizations, they kind of go through and they kind of reshuffle their naming. One of the things the original article was saying is before SRT, they were all working on this project or they're working on the Viper project. And so for the most part, everyone is still there. I don't think they're really going to stop producing stuff. They're just going to maybe stop calling it the same thing. They're going to find ways to make the V6s more badass, I guess. And I don't know if that's kind of a contradictory term, but I guess it's kind of the way the world's moving. Like, are we going to take an SRT motor and drop it into every single vehicle like they do now, which we all love? Maybe not, but I think they might just kind of narrow it down a little bit. And but I don't think from a productivity, from a badassery aspect, we're going to see that much of a change. I mean, it all kind of remains to be seen. But I'm not really that worried. The sky is not falling yet, I don't think.
I'm going to throw just a monkey wrench into what you're saying. This was the end of January. The CEO of Dodge, Tim Kuniskis, said the days of the iron block supercharged 6.2 liter V8 are numbered. They are absolutely numbered because of all the compliance costs, but the performance that those vehicles generate is not numbered. So I think the implication here is that they're moving towards more efficient platforms, okay, more efficient engines, but of course it's not about just the engine, it's about the platform in total. The Hellcat, notoriously heavy, right? So moving towards performance-minded vehicles. I think for me personally, I think that some of this is just simply pandering to the audience and saying, hey, we may not have the V8, but we're still going to be performance-minded. However, if that performance-mindedness means that we're going back to the SRT4 Nitro, I don't know how happy we're going to be with that.
My thing is, maybe we won't lose SRT4, and I'm sure there'll be a twin turbo V6 or something that'll probably be pretty awesome. But I do feel like, what's that?
Not going to sound as good.
It's not going to sound as good.
Well, it'll sound like a vacuum cleaner, just like the Ford EcoBoost motors.
Right.
Which I don't have a lot of problem with, but the magic in Dodge's SRT4 as of the last few years has been that snort a row of cocaine. Let's put a Hellcat motor in it. We all loved that. Obviously, that can't last forever. We'd love to see them just Hellcat every single product at some point. I think if you're going to completely disband that team, you take away the power of them being able to Hellcat a Durango. You know,
Yes.
it's just not going to happen. Now, will there be a turbo Durango? Possibly.
Yeah, but is it going to be half of what it could have been?
I mean, we'll see. But I do think there's magic lost. And Dodge had a niche doing this. Like nobody else was really doing this retarded supercharged V8 thing into everything. So they may be shooting themselves in the foot. Like Jay says, they could just make a 600 horsepower turbo V6 and we'll like it better because it's lighter and handles better and has all the power.
Jay, is the Dodge Ram TRX, is that proof that they're not changing their vision too much, or is that kind of the end of an era?
It could be the end of an era. But I mean, that's the latest and greatest, right? So what I'm reading here is this came out February 17th. And this is what it says right here. And so I don't know what this really means. I don't know. It could be just pandering to us, but SRT is still with us. SRT developed products are still going to be released for the foreseeable future. The group's engineers are all still basically doing the same thing. It says, what has happened is the people SRT engineers report to are now different for the sake of spreading their expertise around a newly formed Stellanis. It's an organizational change, not a change to SRT's outlook or its effect on the company's product. So we'll see if that's true or false. You know,
I got to be honest. I think it's false. I think with everybody saying 2030, 2035 is going to be our date for switching over to everything as electric. While I don't think that that's true, as a matter of fact, I affectionately call it the Liars Club whenever somebody says, oh, we're going to go all electric by 2035. I don't believe it for a second. And that's simply because right now our electrical output in the United States is half of what we would need to operate all vehicles being electric. We're not talking about homes and everything else. We're talking about just strictly vehicles. We have half as much as we need just to strictly power vehicles and nothing else. So obviously they're lying to us. We're not going to advance that much in 14 years. That's not going to happen. Coy, you look like you have thoughts.
I don't have a lot of thoughts about the electrical part. I mean, it's possible that we could just start building wholesale nuclear power stations, which I'm actually for, but I don't see it happening. But I'm sad that they're changing. Either way, if they're just changing a little bit, when you start changing something that's at this moment magical,
yeah,
right,
you can ruin the whole thing with a small change. Like if it's working so well right now, don't fix it. Wait for it to start to have some problems.
Hasn't Dodge kind of been, I don't want to say on the chopping block, but haven't they been in trouble a few times here in recent memory?
Or with the government, you mean?
Or period, I think.
As far as like sales are concerned, where their company was going?
I believe so, for sure. And one thing that about the 2035 thing, I agree with you because I have something to draw on that has absolutely nothing to do with vehicles. So I went back to college in 2008, graduated in 2012. And back then we were talking about the Real ID Act and the federal government. We still haven't adopted it. Not every single state. That basically what that is the enhanced IDs.
Mm-hmm.
And every year they keep pushing it back. And here we are in 2021. Every time I go into the airport, it says by October of 2021, let's do this. But last year it was 2020 and blah, 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 blah. So, I mean, this is so aggressive to your point. I don't really see it happening.
Yeah, I don't either. I'm sorry, but that's just the way it is. I don't see it happening. Jeep has recently been talking about it and are slated to introduce some new hybrid lines for their Jeep. The Gladiator is, of course, going to be getting a hybrid line. And by the way, that's supposed to be really, really good because on demand, you're supposed to be able to get an incredible amount of horsepower. I think it was close to 500 foot-pounds of torque because you have this piggyback electrical motor working in conjunction with the gasoline engine, how most hybrids have worked in the past. And I could see that being a very positive, and especially in the off-road realm. But a lot of this stuff is just too pie in the sky, in my opinion.
It's the whole, like when I was a kid, they told me, you know, you're learning the metric system in school because when you grow up, this is what street signs,
Right.
this is what the speed limit's going to be wrote in, is the metric system. They told my dad the same thing.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, Coy, there are two types of countries in this world, ones that use the metric system and ones that have been to the moon. And I think we know which is which.
Royale with cheese. Yes.
I always like to say we do use the metric system in America. We measure bullets with it. So that